I know that money talks, and people need to. A lot of people think that that's all that matters, and they'll do anything for it. But I think it's quite tasteless. At the time that we're seeing people dying in Gaza, for Twickenham Stadium to play host to international arms dealers on two events. And to speak about this, I've invited Ilyas. How are you doing, Ilyas?
I'm doing very well, very cold, but I'm doing well. I'll tell you how I'm doing, actually, Crispin. I'm Palestinian, and I'm doing pretty bloody well for being on this show, primarily not just because thank you for the invitation, but listening to what everybody's doing all over the country for a Palestinian is massively inspiring. I didn't know half the stuff that was going on, and I live here, and it can really feel very alone being Palestinian. But the acts of solidarity out, what's going on in Sheffield, what's going on in Oxford, all the stuff that's been talked about here is just so inspiring. I just wish, well, people in Gaza aren't going to be able to see. I wish at least people on the West Bank could just hear what's going on just in this show in terms of what everyone's doing for Palestine, because it makes a massive difference, and it's what solidarity is all about. So, long answer. I'm doing a lot better for having listened to the last sort of hour or so, is how I am, Crispin.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on and for telling us what's going on there, because I'm appalled at what I've seen from these flyers and from reading a bit about it. I mean, there was an arms fair last year. Was there one the year before as well? I mean, one arms fair that has been protested against. The fact they're doing two of them is just appalling.
So Twickenham have been doing this since 2015. We didn't know about it at the start, but they've held it in Twickenham Stadium every year since 2015, with the exception of 2020 when it was online because of COVID. But every year it's been there. This year they've doubled up, and they're not just doing the armored vehicles fair. And let's be clear, when they're talking about armored vehicles, we're talking about the tanks. The famous pictures that you see of the kids throwing stones against tanks. That's what that Twickenham fair is about. But this year they're doubling up, and they're bringing in the military helicopters in February as well. So we've got two military fairs going on in England's Rugby stadium. It's just insane. It beggars belief.
And I'm imagining there's no coverage whatsoever on media, mainstream media, about this at all.
No, and this is one of the things. So we've been holding stalls out in Twickenham to let people know. It's not just that there's no coverage on mainstream media. The locals don't know. And obviously the locals don't know. I mean, the RFU, the Rugby Football Union, doesn't want, the local community, and the Rugby Football Union, it boasts about how we're a community organization. We like to work with the community and look at all the great things. Community is a big word they bandy about. Everyone in the community that we've spoken to, with probably 2 or 3 exceptions who get very vocal, but the vast majority have been shocked. They didn't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows that this is going on locally. And when they do, they're shocked and appalled. I mean, we've gathered petitions of hundreds of names that we're going to take the RFU of just local people who live near the stadium, who don't know that it's being used to showcase the suppliers of war crimes. And I mean, let's and I know everyone here knows this, but just putting this in context, the numbers are shocking, right? Over 22,000 dead so far. And that's 22,000 that's underreported for at least 2 reasons. One, obviously, we don't know the numbers of dead that are still under the rubble. But secondly, the health ministry is collapsing. So actually its own ability to count the numbers is now decreasing. So we can't actually get any numbers that we get reported will by definition be under the reality. And that's before the epidemics that are going to dwarf all of these numbers that have set in. But the thing about all of those is they're not a natural disaster. They have happened because someone has intentionally decided to go into Gaza and cause the destruction. And that destruction is caused by weapons, and the suppliers of those weapons who boast about them being field tested, which means we've tried them out on the kids in Gaza, are rocking up to Twickenham Stadium. It is a direct link between the war crimes that are happening in Gaza and Twickenham Stadium and what's happening with the RFU.
Well, look, I've just bring on Fiona Leach, who's a local resident and who's involved in the campaign as well. How are you doing, Fiona?
Fine, fine, thank you.
Can you tell us what your involvement has been and about what, you know, we've heard that local residents don't know anything about it. I mean, what can be done, do you think, to change that?
Well, we, as Ilyas said, we've had a campaign for the last 2 years. We upped it significantly last year. I think we distributed about 4,000 leaflets in the streets, in homes in the streets around the stadium. And yet, yesterday, when we had a presence in the Twickenham High Street, I spoke to several people who said they lived close to the stadium who didn't know about the event and hadn't received a leaflet. So we are a small group, very active, very enterprising, but it is difficult to raise awareness. But we're continuing with another stall in 2 weeks' time. There's going to be a demonstration outside the stadium on, I think, the 22nd of January, which is the first day of the fair. I think the fact that, as he has pointed out, there's going to be actual vehicles this time means that maybe we need to be a bit imaginative about, you know, trying to block them entering the stadium and so on. Everything's kept very low key by the RFU. Last year, I wrote to all 56 councillors, Twickenham councillors. All but 1 or 2 are Lib Dem councillors, and the MP is a Lib Dem. And of course, the Lib Dem party makes very pious statements about disapproving of the arms trade and so on. And yet none of them have done anything about this. And they claim that, oh, it's, you know, private enterprise, we can't interfere. But that's not exactly true. The council has to give approval for an alcohol license, for example. The police are involved in policing matches and so on. Council does have influence. So we're going to continue to pressurize the council. And yesterday we had an enormous number of people coming to our stall in the high street. So much so the police came along and said, can you keep the sound down, please? Because we had a loudspeaker. And you're distracting the motorists who are driving past, many of whom were hooting. I've never heard so many drivers hooting in support. So we're doing what we can, but it's the residents who really need to protest about this. I guess they're not going to boycott rugby matches, but maybe that's what it'll come to. Anyway, yeah. We live in hope.
Well, look, I've just showed a slide of what the actions that people can do to help are, which is here's a help. Join us at stalls. One was yesterday, and on the 20th, 12 o'clock till 2 p.m. Join our protest on Monday the 22nd outside Twickenham Rugby Stadium. Complain to the Twickenham Stadium Community Engagement Manager. There's an email. If people want to know that, get in touch with me. Write to the RFU using our online letter. There's a link there. I'll send that if people want to do that. If you live in the Twickenham constituency, complain to your MP, munira.wilson, and local councillors telling them that our stadium should not be a venue for arms dealers. And then print and get signatures on our petition. Make your views known on social media. Be part of the solution. Yeah, I want to help in any way we can with this show and on a clip on YouTube maybe of this as well to get awareness of it. We've got 2 weeks, have we? Then before the
We've got 2 weeks before the first fair, and then we've got the military helicopters coming back at the end of February. So we're going to have two shots at this. Can I, Crispin? Can I ask a couple of specific ones if I can on the show as well? We've talked a lot of this is about local, but remember RFU is England Rugby, right? So it represents the entirety of rugby union in England. So 2 specific asks that I'd have of people nationally as well in terms of who writes in is if you're in school, if you have school contacts, the RFU really does try to work a lot with schools, and a lot of that is brilliant, right? Rugby, bringing schools to rugby and sport and all of the rest of it. Right next to the RFU, there's a school called Chasebridge School, has 620 kids. The equivalent of the entirety of that school is being killed every 6 days in Gaza right now. I would love it if every school was to write into the RFU and just say, this shouldn't be happening. And we're writing to you as a school because the slaughter of children on this scale shouldn't be something that the RFU makes money out of. Second thing I'd love nationally is if anyone has any links with rugby union, any club links, club or national, again, write in as a representative of that rugby club or union or whatever it is that you belong to that affiliates to the RFU. And again, tell them rugby is about fair play. There is nothing fair play about the likes of Raytheon, Leonardo, Raphael, all of these companies profiteering off a Goliath, the fourth largest military power in the world, killing civilians. That is not fair play. That is not what sport is about. And so I'd love it if everyone who's connected to rugby could write into RFU as well.
And of course, Elbit will be a major representative at the conference. Hillary was talking about Elbit factories.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll continue to we'll put this out and we'll continue to support the campaign and try and get as many people to help with stopping it in the different ways you've mentioned. Yeah, it's appalling. Thank you very much for coming on. And
thank you.
Hope to speak to you soon again. Thank you.